Are you looking to optimize your health? Are you looking to get the best supplements at the lowest price? For high quality supplements and to talk to someone about what supplements are best for you, go to takeyoursupplements.com and one of our fantastic True Health coaches will help you pick out the right supplements for you that are the highest quality and the best price. That's takeyoursupplements.com. takeyoursupplements.com. That's takeyoursupplements.com. Be sure to ask about free shipping and our awesome referral program. Welcome to the Learn True Health podcast. I'm your host, Ashley James. This is episode 23.
So there's something called bids of affection that the things that we do on a daily basis to show our partner we care about them. It could be walking in the kitchen and just touching their butt. It could be sitting next to them where our legs are touching, watching a movie. You're physically touching the person, but you're also interacting with them on a non-verbal basis that shows that you care about them. Studies show that stops when babies come into the family. So now on top of the fact that you're not communicating because you're exhausted, you're also not showing bids of affection, which is interfering with the way that you relate to each other and the man's perception of wanted, being needed.
Welcome back, April Haugen, to the
you.
show. April is a very experienced midwife and doula, also an educator for prenatal and everything to do with babies, basically.
Yes.
Everything to do with moms and babies. And now, and soon she will also be an emotional support educator for the whole family unit.
Correct.
Because there's a really big problem happening that we're just not addressing enough, and that's postpartum depression.
Yes, just mood disorders in general during pregnancy and postpartum.
And what a lot of men don't know, because don't turn off this podcast just
Yep.
yet. We're going to talk about you too. So men also experience postpartum depression.
Yes.
Yes.
Actually 50% chance greater risk.
Really?
If the female partner, the other partner is experiencing some type of mood disorder, they are very likely to have some type of mood disorder themselves develop because their partner is not functioning at the level that they're used to, and they're now taking on different roles than they're used to as well, and that's really hard.
And a new
baby,
tiny creature in their house that keeps them up at night.
And she's not functioning at her optimum place, and so it's definitely, she needs more help. But they each have different needs, and what are those needs, and what does that look like after baby joins? And it's kind of a really important topic to talk about prenatally, so people have more preparation postpartum.
Yes, both parents
Yes.
should learn before the baby comes what to expect and what are the signs of postpartum depression.
Yes.
For both of them. Because I think with this society, and one thing that I learned going through all of my prenatal education while we were pregnant, and I say we really intentionally because my husband was going through it just as much
Absolutely.
as I was. Your partner goes through it too, and to really make sure that you're paying attention to your partner's emotions as well as your own. But what we learned was for thousands of years, we were surrounded by our tribe. That's how we survived. We were surrounded by other women. We were surrounded by our grandmothers. The women who supported us during birth were our grandmothers, were the elders of the tribe or the community or the village, and the husbands had support.
Yeah, with each other.
And
the unit that was made.
Exactly. And now we're all separated.
We're all alone. We don't have anybody, so we have to create our tribe.
Exactly. And so in the last episode, we were talking about what is a doula, what is a midwife. We have to hire these professionals to be part of our team. Now, you can recruit your friends and family,
Right.
but so many people don't live in their hometown.
Nope.
And we don't live close enough to our friends and family. And in this day and age, both mother and father, or both people in the household have to work in order to support the family.
We do.
And so you don't have a lot of disposable friends who with plenty of time on their hands to come help you. So what are the signs? Like, what do you, just touch on postpartum depression, what people really need to know about?
Well, part of it, I think, is understanding sometimes it's not always depression. Sometimes it's anxiety. I think that more of our population deals with anxiety on a daily basis, as well as prenatally and and postpartum. It can be postpartum specifically. It looks more like you're just constantly worried about your baby. You can't sleep. You have these thoughts going through your head of, like, is this normal? Should I be thinking about this? Your baby's sleeping, but you're not sleeping because you're just like a helicopter parent hovering over them so much that it's interfering with your normal activities that you should be doing and taking care of yourself. That can be a sign of anxiety. Sometimes it's avoidance behaviors. So you're terrified of your baby drowning, so you don't give the baby a bath, right? So that's an avoidance behavior. Sometimes that can present as well. So anxiety can look different for different people. Or you're really scared of getting in a car accident with your baby in the car, and so you take back roads everywhere. Like, you won't get on the freeway. You're avoiding the freeway based on that anxiety that you're having for that situation. But with doing that, it becomes worse. The anxiety becomes worse for those situations, and you start to have behavior modification based on those anxieties. And so knowing that that's actually super normal postpartum, about 40% of women experience some type of mood disorder, pregnancy, and postpartum. That statistic alone is really unfortunate, but knowing that there's help. So
Yes.
behavior modification, nutritional support, emotional support, just normalizing what women go through, I think is a big part of it. And depression can look, like, as the picture perfect. This is depressed. Like, I don't get out of bed. I'm crying all the time. Super sad. But it can also look like I have no enjoyment in life. I'm not bonding with my baby. I don't know why I don't love my baby, but is that normal? Everybody talks about falling in love with your baby the moment you meet them, but in reality, that doesn't happen. A high percentage of women, actually, that doesn't happen. And it takes months to form that bond with your baby. You've now created a creature, and I say creature because they don't really fit into our lifestyles nowadays, and they are very demanding. They take all your sleep. They need to be fed. They need to be changed. Half the time you don't know what they want. You have to figure that out, and it takes time to know your child.
And then as women, we beat ourselves up.
Right?
Because it's like, this thing's crying and I should know what to do. Or the father beats himself up, maybe because he's doesn't feel equipped. I mean,
Yeah.
And then of course, then it's this challenge to his manhood, because it's like, well, I'm inadequate. Oh, I must be inadequate as a father because I can't get this thing to shut up.
Right. Well, and the cues are different, and we're made differently. Instinctively, we're made differently. And men like to fix, right? They like to fix and help. And sometimes we as women don't know what we need help or fixed. Like, we just don't. Something's off, and we don't know what it is. And so being able to ask for help, ask for people to support us. We can't do it all. We're not miracle people that are just amazing and we got it all together. We still have to take care of ourselves.
But we beat ourselves up when we don't have it all together.
We do. We absolutely do. But also it's important too, as a unit, to meet the needs of our partner. I think that, all of our attention is going to our newborn, but we also have a partner who needs our attention. That might look different, right? So there's something called bids of affection, that the things that we do on a daily basis to show our partner we care about them. It could be walking in the kitchen and just touching their butt. It could be sitting next to them where our legs are touching, watching a movie. You're physically touching the person, but you're also interacting with them on a nonverbal basis that shows that you care about them. Studies show that stops when babies come into the family. So now, on top of the fact that you're not communicating because you're exhausted, you're also not showing bids of affection, which is interfering with the way that you relate to each other and the man's perception of wanted, being needed, and it makes a big difference. So learning about everybody's attachment styles and needs are huge, and just recognizing that ahead of time to know, what is your love language? What makes you feel supported and happy? And knowing that ahead of time, and kind of having those discussions before the baby comes, so there's an understanding postpartum what everybody's needs are going to be. And not everybody knows, right? Your needs change. Absolutely, they change. And you're not going to know what your needs are always, but personality-wise, you kind of have an idea about who you are as a person
Right.
and what makes you happy. And that's not going to change.
Right.
And so, it's a support thing, and making a connection with other people in our families and our lives so we're not isolated. And returning back to work is really hard. Our system that we have set in place is not supporting new families. It's very money-based.
We're the only country the only developed country in the world, America, that does not have the paid maternity leave.
Yes.
And
It's
so
horrible.
in France, I can't remember the exact amount of weeks, but in France, it's like it's mandatory. It's like the government
Pays you to stay home.
pays you to stay home, and I mean, there's so much about France that I thought was fascinating. They actually have basically like a doctor concierge service where doctors will drive to you and check you in your home.
Right.
So you don't have to, after giving birth, have to travel around if you or
It's
your
like a
baby.
midwife.
Yeah, wow, it is a
It's
lot
totally
like a
like a
midwife.
midwife. Yep.
But there's a lot of
Come
really
to you.
interesting things that other countries are doing, and yet we're not supporting the women who are giving birth and then needing to then breastfeed, because
Yeah.
breastfeeding is the healthiest thing you can do for your baby. It prevents disease, it boosts their immune system, it gives them all the nutrition. There's not one formula on the planet that even comes close.
Nope.
And yet we don't, our workforce and the way it is set up does not support women to make healthy human beings, healthy little Americans that are going to grow up and run this country one day.
And save healthcare costs.
Yeah, we're
Preventing
raising
disease
we're
later on in
raising
life.
generations of children that are not optimally supported or healthy, and
Nope.
the families are not supported. So we have to kind of carve out what we want in terms of support. And so knowing ahead of time our love language, knowing ahead of time what family members can be there to support us, or what professionals can we hire, like doulas or postpartum doulas. And I want to talk
Yes.
about this. My husband and I, we spent 5 days in the hospital. It was 44 hours of labor, and then something like 2 days afterwards, making sure that everything was fine. And it was fine. We were all healthy, baby's healthy. We get home after I did not sleep for 5 days. I think I had 2 hours of sleep in 5 days, like honestly.
Walking zombie.
Yeah, walking zombie, come into the house with this baby that is now not feeding, not latching, crying, colic, constant gas. And so then we were up for several more days. So it's like, but by the first week and a half, I felt like I'd been through Navy SEAL training. The amount of sleep deprivation.
Absolutely.
And so of course, if you stay up for 2 weeks straight, are you going to be anxious? Are you going to be depressed? Are you going to have mental fog? Are you going to be
Crazy?
crazy, literally,
Yeah, like literally
crazy?
crazy?
Yes. And so there are things you can do.
Yes.
So things you can do to set up a support system. Now tell me, for those who don't know, what is a postpartum doula, and why do you want one?
I think they're lovely. It's a great addition onto your package of who's going to support me in this process of becoming a mom. Postpartum doulas are primarily educated on newborn care, breastfeeding. Birth doulas are too, but they're more primed into what exactly does this mom need help as she's transitioning from giving birth into this baby that's now stable. Her needs, sleep is huge. Just somebody to come and know that her baby is safe so she can sleep is part of that anxiety reduced, right? It's anxiety, helps with anxiety because she knows her baby's taken care of. They are generally trained in newborn CPR, so if there's something that happens, they know that there's a provider that can take care of them. Again, there is a certification or not. It's just an experience thing. It's not a license or a degree, but they are very educated. They can help with breastfeeding problems that come up. Sometimes they're lactation consultants, not always, but they do have a lot of lactation knowledge. And so they're going to be that person that can really intervene with, why isn't this working? Maybe we should try this. Or maybe you should seek other professional help before it gets too bad, which can be important here too. Kind of that in-between person. But they're not there to visit with mom. Sometimes they help with other children. Sometimes they help with laundry, with dishes. It's not a nanny. It's not a cleaning service, but they kind of fill in all the needs. It's pretty much what you need, they do.
The world's most experienced babysitter.
Yeah, they fill in that gap that's like really difficult for families to breach in the beginning without support.
Absolutely. And this, I know from personal experience, because I called April up, our baby wasn't eating, and that's really scary to bring a newborn home and then it not eat. And so after over 24 hours after being home from the hospital, so it's a 3-day-old baby, we called up April, who was our doula, And she rushed over when she heard that the baby wasn't eating. And she said, no, number one rule, baby gets fed.
Yes.
And then she helped us coordinate so that the baby could get fed because he wasn't latching and we didn't know what to do
Yeah.
with formula. And how do you feed formula to an infant, like to a
But
tiny
still have
little
that
baby?
breastfeeding relationship. That's so important.
Right, exactly. And how do you continue to try to breastfeed
Yeah.
and try to latch? There's so many things in between. It's not black or white. There's so much to learn. And April said, "You should get a postpartum doula." And I said, "You mean I can sleep?" And we did. We ended up getting one, and we hired her for a few nights a week for the first month and a half. And it was like the reason why we mentally survived.
Yes.
We got to have, a few nights a week we actually got to sleep because otherwise we were up every 90 minutes.
It's so hard.
Yeah.
I think the most important thing when it comes to postpartum mental health is sleep. So whatever that looks like for anybody, if we don't get our REM sleep, we don't reset, we don't heal, we don't recover, our brains don't process better, like we cannot function. So sleep, whatever that takes, moms need at least a 3 to 4 hour stretch, at least once every night. So if that means the other parent gets up and takes over feeding, the postpartum doula is known to this is the stretch, we don't feed, you get up with the baby. That might be the only reason you hire a postpartum doula, is so you can get your 4 hour stretch. Because if you don't get your REM sleep, you're setting yourself up for a lot of emotional and mental health problems.
Yeah, and if you co-sleep or if the baby's in the same room in a bassinet,
Yeah.
then both parents are being woken up in the middle of the night, which was what was happening with us. And so my husband and I tried, we juggled taking turns, but we both ended up waking up every 90 minutes for the first 2 months. And so having a postpartum doula was absolutely what saved us.
You have to. Twins, it's really common with multiples because those babies are on completely different schedules than from each other, let alone from you. How are you ever supposed to function, especially with a breastfeeding mother, but even not breastfeeding, having to get up and make bottles. You just fed one, the other's hungry, okay, I don't get to sleep, and then you're done with that and the other one's hungry. Like, it's a constant job. It's round the clock. And newborns, every newborn is so different. Some baby might go every 3 hours and be perfectly happy. And every other baby is like, again, 90 minutes to an hour, they're eating.
Yeah.
And they're hungry. And they're hungry, and they're hungry, and they're hungry, and they're hungry.
Right.
And there's no end to the cycle because that's what they need.
Right.
And we are not used to that.
And if the dad has to get up to go to work.
Right. He can't be the one to get up at night because he needs his sleep
Yep.
to be able to function and provide for his family.
Yeah. I'd love to see a society where we supported both parents in being parents in their first few months. I mean, we looked at each other after the first 2 months and I think my husband said this to me. He's like, "Can you imagine having to go back to work right now?" Like, there are women who can only afford to take 6 weeks off or 8 weeks off. And we were still we were pumping and breastfeeding for several months. And so we could not, I could not imagine the women who have to, after 4 weeks or 6 weeks or 8 weeks or 3 months, go back to work, bring the pumps with them. I have a friend who had to sit in the bathroom stall on her breaks to pump.
Yeah, that's another one.
And it's like, that is not sanitary but there was no other place in the workplace for her to do that.
Provisions for breastfeeding moms are something that needs to be a priority in our workplace.
Yeah. It's unsettling.
Very unsettling.
Yeah. So if you can carve out, we have to enforce it ourselves. We cannot sit around and wait for society to match our needs.
Or wait until the problem's there. Brainstorm ahead of time before it is a problem.
So see what you can do with your boss, with your coworkers, with your working environment, whatever your job is. See what you can do to make sure, if are you going to be pumping? Are you going to be breastfeeding? I know another woman who had her mother-in-law drive the baby to her at work. So every 90 minutes could feed the baby. And the mother-in-law would just dry. Yeah, can you imagine?
That's dedication. That is so intense.
Yeah, absolutely. It is affordable to do breastfeeding.
It is completely affordable,
and the healthier way to do it. So,
and it's not so hard after 6 weeks. you have to get over the first few months, and then the relationship becomes an easier transition, and the baby's getting a little bit bigger, a little bit easier in that aspect. But it takes so much time and effort in the beginning, and babies don't come out knowing how to breastfeed. That's something a lot of women don't realize is yes, it's an instinct to feed, but actually how to latch onto the breast properly and get the most out of it is not something that babies are instinctively great at, right? And a mom has never breastfed a baby.
They don't have coordination. Are you
No.
kidding me? They're like, their limbs are sort of flailing
are
around.
bobbing
Their hands are
around.
bobbing. They cannot control their neck. I mean, these are just little tiny,
Right. They just want the source. They don't care how they get it or how or what or anything. They know where it's at.
Right.
That's all they're concerned about. But then mom is the receiving person to this attention, and how is that going to affect her emotionally, physically? Physically is the main one, right? Like breast injury based on wrong latch.
neck injury.
Yep, neck
'Cause
injury,
I did
back
that.
injury.
I was like staring down at the baby and I was
Yes.
throwing out my neck, and my chiropractor's like, okay, we need to put some pillows, get one of those.
Always bring baby to you, not you to baby.
Yes, but it was really interesting. You told me to go seek out some lactation consultants, and I think we were like little overachievers here. So my husband and I went to every lactation consultant we could get our hands on. Went to like a nurse, a practitioner, lactation consultant, and then we went to one that actually kept coming to our house because
That's
she
great.
wanted to check us morning, noon, and night, that kind of thing. And
Yeah.
so we went to a bunch of them. And it was interesting that we would get a little bit different information, or
Imagine.
into the insights. And so it's not cut and dry. It's not.
It's not.
But I highly recommend that you seek out the information. So a woman, let's say she's planning on being pregnant, or she's pregnant right now, and she wants to breastfeed, but it's her first birth, and she doesn't. Or it's not just your first birth, because
Problems arise any point, any pregnancy.
Yes. So we ended up getting, and again, you helped us with this, turned us on to women there's communities of women who will donate breast milk.
Yes.
And this is a taboo topic to talk about, so I want to talk about it.
Yeah, no, I think it's great.
Because so many people who are uneducated around this think, oh, well, what if it's unclean milk, or the mother is infected with something, or there's disease, or the woman's on drugs. And that's just not. The whole community around donating breast milk, these are moms who just...
They're supporting other moms, and they want to
Exactly.
provide a healthy alternative to formula.
Yeah, and there's this one woman, and if you're on Facebook, look up the group Breastfeeding and Beyond. I'm sure there's a bunch of them, but there's this one group of women who there's amazing information there. And locally, there's this woman who donated milk, and it was with her fourth child. She could not breastfeed with the first three. And so she reached out and started learning more and more and more and more. And then by the fourth child, she was making so much, she became like this super donator.
That's awesome. But
And,
it became a passion for her too, probably, because she knew what it was like to not breastfeed.
Well, she was told, someone like her mother-in-law said that she made bad milk because the baby wouldn't latch. And so she developed a complex.
Yeah.
And of course, stress. What I learned is that the more stressed you are, the harder it is for you to produce milk.
Absolutely.
And then you're producing less milk, so now you get more stress, and it's this vicious cycle.
Yes.
And if you're not getting any sleep,
Right.
you're stressed.
You can't make milk if you're
you
not
can't
sleeping.
make milk. Yeah, you have to sleep.
Right.
But the irony is you also have to nurse or pump in the middle of the night in order to keep up a full supply.
This is
So
true.
it's like, you have to sleep to make milk, but you also have to not sleep to make milk.
Yes.
So
Yes.
there's a lot going on, and I learned so much from reaching out to the lactation consultants and the other moms in other communities, like the Facebook groups that you can find where there's other moms that are supporting.
Right.
So name a few resources that women should know about when looking into lactation
Yeah.
education.
Part of it is breastfeeding classes. I think you can learn about breastfeeding and breast health prenatally. There's classes offered to learn about how do you hold a baby, how do you make milk, what's kind of the technical stuff behind that, and what does that look like, so you understand when they want your baby to latch within the first hour of birth why that is, because if that doesn't happen, then it delays the actual production of milk, which can make a big difference with your future relationship with breastfeeding. Other things that you can do is like La Leche League. They have different regional sites around different states and communities, and a lot of times they actually have a La Leche League in that area that will be leading classes or even just support groups. And so I think prenatally it's great to go to those, even though you don't have a little one attached to your breast yet, because you can talk to other moms, you can learn, you can hear stories, you can hear things that they've done to brainstorm different ideas to fix, because you don't really know what's going to happen yet, and everybody's experience is different. I think knowledge about just breast health is super important too, and just knowing what your breasts do. One of the things that I ask women, and they look at me kind of weird, is when your nipples harden, which direction do they point? Do they not point? Do they point out? Or do they go inside? And I think that can be a big clue on how breastfeeding might potentially go for you, and if there's anything you need to do prenatally to help loosen up that connective tissue. Because if your nipples invert, go inside, that's going to make it a lot harder for your baby to latch onto. Or if you have really flat nipples where they don't really stick out, but they do a little bit, that's also going to be difficult for your baby to latch onto. But there are things like, they're called supple cups that you can attach onto your nipples prenatally to help loosen that connective tissue.
Really?
So then by the time you're actually showing your breast to your baby, they have something to hold on to. And then you're not always going to have to use a nipple shield, which is a silicone little nipple that you can put on your nipple each time you breastfeed, but then hopefully over the course of your baby latching will then loosen that connective tissue, and then you won't be able to have to use that because it's pretty obnoxious.
It is. I was going to say it's horrible.
It is obnoxious. It increases your risk of mastitis too, and it also affects milk letdown and the efficiency of the baby emptying your breast of milk, and so clogged ducts and those types of things. It's a tool. It should be used as a tool and not I'm still 6 weeks, 7 weeks, 8 weeks postpartum using my nipple shield.
Yeah, they gave me one of those in the hospital. It was kind of disappointing. They were like, oh, he's not latching, here, have this, and then they left. I was just sitting there, exhausted and clueless, and I would have loved to have more support
and education and knowledge about that. They do hand them out like candy sometimes, which I think is a not unfortunate thing, because you do have a lot of moms who are still using the nipple shield way longer than it was meant for, because they don't know how else to breastfeed. Mm-hmm. That was what they were taught with. But there's a lot of benefits of knowing. So part of the prenatal thing that you can do, or even preconception, is looking at your breast. What is beneficial? What type of breast is beneficial for breastfeeding the easiest? And then what can I do to get to that point so I know that I'm not going to struggle as much with just the fact that my nipple doesn't come out?
And to bust a myth, flat-chested women,
they can breastfeed.
They can breastfeed, and it doesn't matter.
Nope.
Because that tissue develops in pregnancy.
Pregnancy, yeah. You do have a lot of your tissue that develops in pregnancy, like your breasts complete maturing when you're pregnant.
That's really interesting.
It is really interesting.
You can be in your 30s and be still maturing.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it's important though too that if you don't have any breast changes during pregnancy, so they never got tender, they never grew, they never darkened your areola, that's something that you should seek out a provider information about ahead of time, because sometimes there are instances in medical conditions where the breast tissue didn't develop like it was supposed to, and that will affect how much milk you're actually able to produce. Mm-hmm. So lactation consultant is the person, like if you're in your 3rd trimester and you haven't noticed anything, or even in your 2nd trimester, late 2nd trimester, and your breasts don't look any different to you, they haven't grown, they don't feel any different, it would be worthwhile to at least have a meeting with a lactation consultant to say, is this something I should be concerned about? What can I do nutritionally to help support my milk supply when it comes in?
Absolutely.
And then if we have an overabundance, great, we can fix that. But most of the time, if there are true concerns, there's a way to kind of broach that topic before it becomes a problem.
And if you have an overabundance, you could donate.
Donate it!
You can donate to struggling women and to the NICU.
Yes.
So that there are babies who are born
preemies, they need
preemies, and we can donate breast milk to them because the moms sometimes haven't developed, or they were on drugs and they couldn't pump themselves, and so there's a lot of circumstances in which we can donate. So I'm a big advocate for that community. So there's 2 Facebook groups that if you're looking for donate breast milk or just to connect with the community, it's Eats on Feets, and then it's Human Milk for Human Babies. So you can Google those 2 and those are just good communities to reach out to, especially if you want to connect with local moms or lactation consultants.
Absolutely.
So those are two really good. I believe they have Facebook groups, and then they also have Facebook fan pages depending on what
Right.
state you're in or country. Anyway, so moving on. What herb, well, actually not moving on because we're still talking about lactation. I want to know what herb is good for supporting healthy breast tissue and healthy milk production.
So one of the things I was talking about like breast not working so well is called hypoplastic breast tissue. And so that's something like goat's rue you can start prenatally at 28 weeks to help.
Goat's rue.
Goat's rue.
Okay.
Yeah.
How would you like a tea or tincture?
It's usually tincture, I think. You might be able to find it in a tea. Alfalfa is super high in minerals, and it's really great for milk support as well.
Is that is that in tincture?
That's a teacher.
A
Teacher. You could do that tea or tincture.
Okay. I was thinking like alfalfa, like sandwiches,
Yes.
like alfalfa sprouts. Put them in my sandwiches.
You could put those in your sandwiches too, but a lot of times it's a tea like alfalfa tea, nettle tea. A lot of times we're recommending those things during pregnancy because of the mineral content. So you can take any plant, and if you want to extract minerals, it's a cold infusion. So it's not heat. You're going to do it in cold to help the minerals get out into the solution. So alfalfa is one of those that you can do that with. And then another one that you can do, there's a supplement out there called GoLacta. I don't remember what kind of plant it specifically is, but it has been really, really beneficial for moms that are having issues with milk production.
Very
So
cool.
that can really help. Something to keep in mind, one of the things that's recommended pretty frequently in pregnancy is, raspberry leaf tea, because it's super beneficial for the uterus and tonifying and has a lot of minerals and vitamins in it. But it also has a lot of tannins, which can be drying to it. And so it's something to keep in mind is prenatally, postpartum, if you're drinking raspberry leaf tea, it can actually dry up your milk.
Ooh.
So that's something to keep in mind. It's not commonly what happens, but in higher doses, that definitely has the potential to have a drying effect on the body, which is important to know because you're like, I got this great tea. And yes, it's great for most women at any point in their life, except when you're trying to breastfeed.
Yes.
It could have the opposite effect.
Wow. So see your provider or
yes, talk to
your
them about that.
midwife, your naturopath, about what herbs would be good to support you.
Fenugreek is another one.
Oh, yeah.
Fenugreek makes women smell like maple syrup.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a really great way to help support your breastfeeding relationship. There are some other ones. Let me see if I can think of some here. Yeah, fenugreek is one of them. Blessed thistle, you can do a tincture up to 20 drops a day for that. That also can definitely help. But I think part of it is the supply and demand. And there are formulations out there that are specifically formulated to help nursing moms, like nursing teas and tinctures and stuff that have a combination of plants in them. But it's all about supply and demand. So if you demand it, your body will create it. It might take a couple days to get that amount, increased. Mm-hmm. But it's all about supply and demand. That's why it's so important to get your baby to latch within that first hour after birth, no matter how your baby was delivered, is because we're trying to stimulate after the birth the next step of lactogenesis, which is creating milk.
Yeah. So before you give birth, find a lactation education.
Yes.
Reach out.
And if you feel like you need
all
more
about it.
support, then find that and learn more about your breasts and what that means for your relationship with breastfeeding.
Are there any books that you could recommend women read at this stage?
Yeah, there's quite a few books actually. As far as breastfeeding goes, there's, a ton of breastfeeding books out there. I'm trying to think of names of specific ones. And they're totally slipping my mind at the
It's
moment.
okay. Don't worry about it. But do you have one specific book that you absolutely love?
Yes, it's purple. I think it's called The Womanly Guide to Breastfeeding, or The Woman's Guide to Breastfeeding. I'm horrible about names, so I apologize. But it is purple. I do know that. And there's a breastfeeding mom in the front.
Look for the purple book on
Look for
Amazon.
the purple book on Amazon.
And in general, what's your favorite book? Do you have a one book that everyone should read?
Anything that Ina May Gaskin produces.
Yes, Ina
She's
May is
a really
amazing.
amazing, famous midwife that lives back back east, and she has some really amazing books that she has put out, and I can't remember the name of all of them.
Oh no, I totally.
But anything with her, you're not going to go wrong. And there's a
Yes.
lot of education that happens in that.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything Ina May.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Totally agree with you.
Yes.
What's your favorite herb and why?
What is my favorite herb? There's so many of them. For specifically pregnancy?
Oh, just any
Or
any
just
herb
in
and why?
general?
Just in general. Do you have like one that's always in your medicine cabinet you always go to?
Yeah, actually, catnip.
Is there something I need to know?
I use it for my children. It really helps for fever reduction. So my son doesn't respond well to ibuprofen or Tylenol. He's kind of got this really strong vital force, and as an infant, he would have febrile seizures because his temperature would spike so quickly. And catnip is the one thing that makes his fever go away.
So catnip is safe for babies and children?
Yeah, I would recommend you find a naturopathic doctor to talk to before giving it to them, to kind of understand what its use is for specifically and how much to give your child based on their age. But that's kind of my go-to. I love catnip. It works great.
Is it a tea or tincture? How do you?
Tincture.
Wow.
Yeah, I give it. My son was just sick a couple weeks ago, and he was 99, and then the next time I checked him, 45 minutes later, he was 103. And I'm like, oh, we need to go get the catnip. And I'm talking 20 minutes later, he was back to 99.
Wow.
So it's very effective. And like my daughter doesn't work as well, but for him, that's his plant. I think everybody kind of has their plant, but that's my favorite
cool.
plant just because it works so quickly and so efficiently.
I love it. I
Yeah.
love it. Thank you. So I'd love you to bust a medical myth
Oh, boy.
today. So what is like the one thing? So for example, I would say like eggs and fat are actually good for you. You know, like aluminum doesn't cause Alzheimer's. So what is your medical myth? Maybe in the midwifery world or in the doula world or.
Oh, man. Medical myth. I keep thinking cord blood.
Yes, let's talk about it. Okay. Not everyone knows this. We see in Hollywood, you know, they deliver the baby, they cut the cord, they take the baby away and they wrap it up and they go weigh it, and the mom doesn't even get to see the baby for the first 15 minutes. I mean,
Right.
this is what Hollywood teaches us, right? Is normal. And in the midwifery school of birthing,
Yes.
we have this much different picture of someone catches the baby and immediately hands it to the mom,
Yeah.
skin to skin, on her chest.
That cord is attached.
That cord's still attached, and for how long and why?
The baby's blood leaves its body to go to the placenta so there can be that nutrient interchange and oxygen interchange, right? That's the whole point of having the placenta inside, because otherwise the baby would just be in water and we're hoping it grows. Like, that doesn't really work. There has to be some type of attachment. So that cord is the attachment to the source of life on the mom. But everything in that cord belongs to the baby, right? Like, all the blood that's there was the baby's to begin with and is circulating. It's just baby's blood that's moving back and forth between placenta and baby, placenta and baby. It's not like the placenta created this blood and needs to have some of the blood. It's not like the baby is like, oh, I don't need that blood. That's my blood. I want it back. So what danger is there allowing that to naturally migrate back into the baby once the baby is born? The cord will naturally constrict to force the blood back into the baby. That is the way that biologically we were designed to have our blood back inside of us. So if you cut that cord early, that could be up to 50, 60 milliliters of that baby's blood that is now left in the placenta, which is just going to go in the trash, or the cord, and it's not going to be used for anything else.
And Penny Simkin has a great video on YouTube.
Yes.
Look up Penny Simkin cord blood. And it is, or placenta, or when to cut the cord. I can't remember the name,
Right.
but if you look at Penny
Delayed cord
Simkin,
clamping.
delayed cord clamping. Look up Penny Simkin, delayed cord clamping. And she does a demonstration where she says that 1/3 of the baby's blood is in the placenta when you give birth. Now, can you imagine losing right now 1/3 of your blood? How do you feel? You know?
Not so hot.
And then MDs or, like the OBs of the hospital will say, oh no, if we let the blood go back into the baby, if you don't cut the cord right away, they're going to get jaundice.
Right.
And
Jaundice is a normal thing that happens in the baby's body after birth. It's normal. Before 24 hours is not as much normal, and that's usually caused by some other problem. But after that is normal. And it usually peaks by day 4, and then the body naturally does what it does and breaks it down. And, it's part of that baby's blood that's breaking down because they have an excess amount of, hemoglobin. It's different. Mm-hmm. Their bodies are made differently so they can sustain longer times without so much oxygen. And they're not going to be suffering from that like we would. We hold our breath for 3 minutes. We probably aren't going to be alive. A baby can sustain a longer amount of time because their hemoglobin is different and shaped different. But their body has to go through changes afterwards by getting rid of some of the stuff that's not needed now that they're actually breathing on their own. And that's a normal process. It's broken down and excreted through the bowels or broken down through sunlight on the skin. So babies that, are super jaundiced obviously need a little bit more support with either nutritional stuff, making sure they're getting enough calories in to help push that through their bowels, or, sometimes put on lights to help break it down a little bit faster.
And there's a special type of lights, not just like turn on the kitchen lights.
Right. Yeah. That's usually through a provider that's decided, their levels are high enough, because they can be dangerous if their levels get too high. But jaundice is normal for most babies, and it's not going to harm them most of the time.
And was crazy to me, that even when you're breastfeeding, the baby's stomach is so small, it's like the size of a marble, right? And they're only getting this tiny, tiny, tiny little amount of liquid for the first 2 to 3 days,
right,
before the milk really lets down.
Yeah.
And they're basically going to get dehydrated. If you clamp the cord right away,
right,
you're guaranteeing you're going to have a dehydrated baby in 2 days.
Or an anemic baby.
Yeah.
What about this? Your baby comes out and, needs a little bit more support to breathe or transition from being an in utero baby to an out of utero, so a newborn. There's a lot of things that their cardiovascular system has to go through in order for that process to happen. And sometimes we really are really, really thankful we have that cord still attached to mom, because they're still getting oxygen as long as that cord is pulsing to the placenta, which is attached to mom, and still getting that oxygen exchange. So it can be super beneficial in actually resuscitating a baby to have the placenta attached. And, the way that it happens now, baby's cord, that lifeline is cut, and the baby's worked on a station completely away from baby, when ideally they should be able to be between mom's legs if necessary, because we know that they're still getting that support, and the baby's not going to get too much blood. It's not like the placenta's feeding them extra blood. It's their blood just going back in their body. And if baby's put on mom's chest, that's still their blood going back in their body. You don't have to hold them a position a certain way to prevent it from sneaking back in, or, Yeah,
April was shocked when she found out that an educated MD that delivers babies in a hospital told their patient that we have to hold the baby below the mother so the blood can get into the baby.
Or even like the same level to prevent too much from going across.
But if we hold the baby up above the mom, the blood won't get in the baby from the cord, which is not physiologically how it works. And it's sad that there are so many doctors that are delivering babies that have bought into this medical myth.
There is a push right now for doctors to do delayed cord clamping, and it's come from ACOG, the American College of Gynecologists, and that's great, except for then the misconception of, well, what exactly is delayed cord clamping? Is it 30 seconds? Oh, I didn't cut it for 30 seconds. They got delayed, which research truly says at least 2 to 3 minutes of pulsation, which is still not going to drain that cord adequately. Cords can pulse up to 30 minutes sometimes. It's rare, but it can happen. It's more common to be more like 10 minutes, and sometimes less than that, or a little bit longer. But that's still that body trying to figure out how to get that blood back inside, and, the baby's needs, and that looks different for everyone. And who are we to decide, it's been 30 seconds, let's cut off your lifeline and leave all your blood in the cord?
Right, right. And for those who are a bit more spiritual, I have a friend who left the cord connected for 6 hours.
Yeah, that can totally happen. You can even deliver the placenta with the cord attached, and that's considered a lotus birth because baby's born, there's no separation, the placenta's born. And then there are families who continue to do like the full lotus, which means you have this pouch that's been prepared. The placenta gets prepared with salt and herbs, and then that gets carried around until it actually detaches from the baby.
Wow.
Which is a little bit more intense because you're
That
carrying an
is
organ
a little
that's
bit.
decaying around with you, but that's what the point of the salt and the herbs are, is to mask the smell, but to also help dry it faster. Even cord burning can happen, which is not clamping and cutting. You're actually, putting the cord on this little box in both parents. So again, it can be a spiritual thing, an emotional thing where they're actually lighting the cord, cutting it that way, and it's being burned. That seals off the blood vessels. It's totally clean because there's no infection around with the burning. And that actually can help cords fall off even faster.
Oh, wow.
So that can be a unique thing that your provider can offer.
Yeah, and the reason why my friend left it for 6 hours was that she felt the energy, like the pulsing had stopped, but she swore that when she's very sensitive to energy and chi, So
Right.
if you're a person who knows about Reiki, healing touch, Tai Chi or Qigong, she felt the energy still coming from the placenta into the baby.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and so we waited until the cord absolutely stopped pulsing, was completely white, and we felt so good about that decision because we
Right.
had complications with feeding, and I can't even imagine
Right.
how bigger those complications would have grown if he was dehydrated because we cut it right away.
Right.
So I was so thankful that we learned this information, and we just wouldn't have known. So many
No.
people just go into the hospital and just go with the flow, do exactly what the doctors and the nurses say, and they don't know that there's that they can ask for different things.
Absolutely.
So I'm
Pure
so happy.
experience.
Yeah, I'm so happy we had you here. I hope that we opened our listeners' eyes and gave them some new things to explore.
Absolutely.
I really want to empower both the mother and the father, both partners,
Right.
so that they know that there are options that meet their lifestyle and their belief system, and also make sure that they're making the best choices for themselves and the health of their baby.
Right.
So I think we've done that here today.
Absolutely, we have, for sure.
Yeah. So just to wrap things up, how can people reach you? What's your website?
It's www.sunrisemidwifery.net. And you
Excellent.
can also look on MAWS, which is the Midwives Association of Washington State. They have links to other organizations that you can find your midwife at. There's also a website called The Big Push, which is pushing for midwifery care in other states and which states are legal. So basically, you can go there to find the status of midwifery in your state and how to proceed forward with finding a practitioner in your area.
Excellent. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. I still have like this long list of questions, so I know we need to get you on the show again.
That's great.
But we're going to be filming with April in our studio here. Lots of great videos teaching families and women about prenatal care, just knowing more about your options around
Right.
birth and empowering you as future parents. So definitely tune in to learntruehealth.com to check out April's videos. And thank you so much, April, for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Are you looking to optimize your health? Are you looking to get the best supplements at the lowest price? For high quality supplements and to talk to someone about what supplements are best for you, go to takeyoursupplements.com and one of our fantastic True Health coaches will help you pick out the right supplements for you that are the highest quality and the best price. That's takeyoursupplements.com. Takeyoursupplements.com. That's takeyoursupplements.com. Be sure to ask about free shipping and our awesome referral program.